Let's talk about something they don't put in finance textbooks, something they don't highlight in stock market documentaries, something that makes people feel uncomfortable because it forces them to confront truth. There was a time when black people weren't allowed to invest because we were the investment. Our ancestors weren't traders, they were traded. Not with ticker stamp symbols and trading apps, but with ledgers, chains, paperwork, auctions, receipts. Black bodies were priced, valued, leveraged, insured, collateralized. We were listed as property, as assets in inventory, as booming market opportunity. A healthy man, a higher price. A woman who could bear children, an appreciated asset. A child, future labor, long-term yield. They calculated our worth in pounds and dollars, but never in humanity. But here's the part that hits different, right? Banks issued mortgages using enslaved people as collateral. Insurance company paid when we died. Plantations operated like corporations with profit forecast and labor output models. Wall Street foundation was partially built on our chains. So when people say history was a long time ago, what they really mean is that they don't want us to see how today's systems were financed. Because the wealth that built empires just didn't disappear. It transitioned, it compounded, it evolved, right? And when slavery ended, nobody gave black families capital. Nobody gave us equity. Nobody gave us land. Nobody gave us shares. We were freed with empty hands, while others kept the portfolios we paid for with our lives. So, yes, we once were traded like companies. But here's what make this moment divine. Okay? Here's what make this divine. Here's what makes this era different. Today, black people like me, you, whoever, we can trade. We can buy, we can invest, we can short, we can own equity, we can build portfolios, accumulate assets, right? We can collect dividends, we can create generational wealth. What is it that I'm over here talking about all the time? Like, that's the amazing part about it, y'all. We went from being the product to owning the platform. We went from being an asset to becoming an asset manager, right? I worked in finance for a while, I did these things, and that's the amazing thing about it. We went from being the collateral to being the capital. And if you really think about it, every time a black woman or a man open a brokerage account, every time that we buy a stock, every time that we study a chart, every time that we build credit, every time that we invest in the future, we are literally living out the dreams our ancestors were never allowed to imagine. They were never even allowed to read. So we're living out the dreams that our ancestors were never allowed to imagine. They couldn't buy land. They couldn't own stocks. They couldn't open banks. They couldn't sign contracts. They couldn't pass down wealth. But, and I don't mean this in the worst way, but in a great way. They prayed, they endured, they survived, so that you're gonna point it right at you, so that you can stand in a market that once profited off of their suffering and finally say, I own something now, right? So to me, that's not just financial literacy, y'all. That's spiritual inheritance. Right? It's not just financial literacy. That's reclaiming power. That's rewriting destiny. That's honoring bloodlines through ownership, right? And this is why knowing your history matters. We have a lot of people out here that just spew out crazy stuff and disrespect the people that come before us or came before us. And we got to be able to honor our bloodlines through ownership, for real. Because when you understand that your ancestors are once priced, and today you get to set the price, you get to move differently, right? You get to treat your finances seriously. You respect ownership. You value investment knowledge, right? You understand that wealth isn't greed, is really restitution, right? Because we are not just building money, we are correcting a story, right? We are becoming what our ancestors prayed for without knowing the language for it, right? They didn't know that one day we'll be in the stock market. They dreamed of freedom while we live in strategy. They dreamed of dignity while we live in ownership. They dreamed of choice while we live in leverage. And for my people out there that use margin and leverage, y'all, that one probably hit y'all hard. They dreamed of choice when we live in leverage. Every Black investor today is proof that the system didn't finish the job. Every Black entrepreneur, that came before us, the man of C.J. Walkers, the O.W. Gurley, is rebellion and resurrection wrapped in purpose. Everybody that owns something today, right? You are not just trading stock, you are fulfilling prophecy. And when you know that, when you understand that connection, you stop seeing the market as a gamble and start seeing it as sacred ground, right? Because once upon a time, we were the transaction. And now, we are the decision makers. So not only are we the decision makers, y'all, but we are the buyers. We are the owners. We are the legacy, right? We are all of those things. We're our ancestors' greatest dreams, greatest aspirations, And the reason we study this is that we're remembering where we came from to make sure that we can never return back. If you like this content today and you feel inspired and you want to be able to do something about it, first step is knowledge, right? So I put 5 tips in the comments. So look at it, reach out to me, and we could be able to start this community together. All right. Appreciate y'all. Love y'all.